When you were little, did you ever wonder what 2020 would be like? Hi, I'm Annie, and I'm a miserable cow. Although, I'm not feeling too miserable lately. I actually feel okay. Today, I'm going to talk about coronavirus, intuition, prepping, and seeing it coming. I am having a very unique pandemic experience in that I knew it was coming. Many people have been completely blindsided by this rapidly evolving crisis. But since I knew it was coming, I've had time to physically, mentally, and emotionally prepare for it, and that has made all the difference. Now that it's happening, I don't have any reason to leave my house, and I haven't left my house in quite a while. We have everything we need because we gathered supplies slowly and calmly all throughout January and February. By the time we got to March, we pretty much had everything we needed. No hoarding, just slow, calm gathering. So, how did I know this was coming? My partner told me. I didn't put two and two together and figure it out myself. He broke the news to me bit by bit, slowly, throughout January and February. In a crisis, he wasn't really sure how much of a liability my emotional fragility and anxiety would be. And so he very slowly planted the seeds and slowly over time explained to me all these things that are now coming to pass. The first warning came in late December. He said, I don't want you to freak out, but there are going to be supply chain issues. If there are any things that you need, you should get them now. And especially right now, if you need any small electronics or anything that's made in China, buy it now. And I didn't really want to think about that because that's not how I operate. I don't have a lot of money, so I wasn't really sure what to buy. I don't really buy things that I don't need because I don't have very much money. But, I listen to audiobooks all the time, and audiobooks and YouTube, and I have my AirPods. And he said, at least buy a backup pair of corded headphones because if your AirPods break, you're gonna want to have some headphones. I thought that's a good idea. In a normal year, my AirPods could break at any moment, and I would prefer to have a backup. It's only $30, so I went ahead and bought some of those. In January, he told me, every time you go to the grocery store, buy a little bit of extra. Buy shelf-stable foods, just a little bit at a time, every time you go to the store. We bought dish soap, laundry soap, dog food. Every time we went to buy dog food, we bought 2 bags instead of 1. And this isn't really hoarding because we did it so slowly over time. Probably no one even noticed. Because we did it so gradually over time, they would have, had time to keep restocking. So by the time the whole toilet paper gate was a thing, we already had everything we needed. We didn't even have to go to the store at that point. When everyone was crazy and the stores were crowded and the shelves were getting emptied, we haven't been to the store in 3 weeks. Now, at first, I was a little baffled. I've never really seen him behave this way, and I was a little bit concerned that some of the food would go bad. I was very concerned that we would store the food properly, and he was very careful with that. The dog food is all stored in, locked down garbage bags so that vermin and trash pandas, what are they called? Raccoons. I couldn't think of that name. So the raccoons wouldn't get it and stuff like that. And then with the rice, I didn't watch him do this, but I think there's some trick where you put the rice in a 5-gallon bucket, and if you put a little piece of dry ice in there and then put the lid on it, sucks it down or something like that. I don't know. I wasn't there, but he has some trick for that. So the food has been stored very carefully. We do have a full chest freezer full of food. He bought 2 lambs this year. We would normally only get 1 lamb. Now, the only flaw with that is that if the electricity goes out, we've got a lot of frozen food on our hands. We do have a generator, but I don't know, how long you can keep a freezer going if there's no electricity. So at first I thought this was a little weird, and I asked him, why? Why all this preparation? I don't understand. And, he very gently told me that at some point we might not be able to, or we might not want to leave the house for a while. I said, what about work? And he said, you might not be able to work. Make as much money as you can right now and just mentally prepare yourself. that you might not be able to work. You might lose your office. The world is going to be very, very different for several months. It's going to be chaotic. My niece was born on February 20th, and by the time they got home from the hospital, it was maybe 3 days later. Actually, it was my birthday, February 23rd, and she wanted me to come visit her baby. By then, I was just starting to feel a little weird about all this. I wasn't sure if it was okay to have contact with her. We were already starting to limit our contact, but this is really important. It's my niece. And so I went over there on my birthday and I held my niece, and that's the only time that I've seen her. I haven't seen her since then. I've just seen pictures on Facebook. I kept seeing clients at my office, but just increasingly throughout February, I was starting to feel a little sketchy about it. As I was starting to really hear what my partner was telling me, and I was starting to read the news myself, which I don't normally do. My partner and I are both really high consume, but we just consume different things. I consume more like NF kind of stuff, and he's more of an NT kind of consumer. So he reads the news. I was starting to read it. I was starting to feel, apprehensive about working and contact with clients. I was starting to clean a lot more, disinfect things. And, I had this one client, he's probably in his 70s, and his mom is in her 90s. And he was on my table and he said, "Boy, last week my mom was sicker than a dog. And she must have got it from my brother who had it last week, but I'm not worried about it because I don't get sick much." So I had a lot of clients saying similar things that just demonstrated a complete lack of understanding about how viruses spread. Now, if anybody's going to be an asymptomatic carrier, it's probably me, because I haven't been sick. I don't want to be cocky and say that I can't get sick, because I think that, we're dealing with something extremely contagious right now. But honestly, I haven't had a fever in 10 years. And even then, it wasn't a virus. It was like a UTI. It was a bacterial thing. And then before that, I don't even remember. That was probably the only fever that I had in 30 years. I probably had some fevers when I was little. I just don't seem to get viruses. Not saying that it's not possible. I'm just saying that this worry of being an asymptomatic carrier was very concerning to me. A lot of my clients are elderly. I was pretty worried about it. And then on March 12th, I finally just put a freeze on my booking calendar through the end of March. And then a couple days later, I blocked off all of April, because we just don't know what's going to happen. It seems like every day this thing evolves more and nobody really knows what the future holds. We were supposed to have family dinner on March 15th, and this is something that we do once a month. It's always at my mom's house, and the new baby was going to be there, also my nephew, just a handful of family members, and I really didn't want to do it. I didn't feel okay about it. I didn't want to have any contact with my mom or really anybody. Not so much thinking about my personal risk, but feeling a really great sense of responsibility to not be a vector for this virus. And then, of course, as I hear more about the virus, my age group isn't really high risk, but still, the young people, I'm 43, who do get this virus and end up having to be in the hospital, it's just really unpleasant. So I would prefer not to get it. But I did not want to go to this family dinner. And there was this group text, and I was just sort of, voicing my concern in this family group text. And in my family, we're all black sheep. We're all just kind of weird. But I was feeling extremely socially self-conscious because they just thought I was crazy. They had heard my partner talking about this virus and talking about getting prepared, and they kind of thought we were going off the rails, really. That was probably around, March 12th when I was voicing those concerns. And then, the day before the family dinner, my mom finally canceled it because she had started to read the news also, and she said, "Oh, okay, I guess maybe it's not a good idea." I was really relieved, honestly. And then I was like, fuck, I may never see my mom again. I don't know when we're going to see each other, all of us. I don't know how long this is going to last. I don't know when I'm ever going to see my niece again. How many months is this going to go on? Nobody knows. So my family also made fun of my partner. His name is Russ. If Russ can't fix it, it's fucked. That's Russ. They made a lot of fun of him when he started the garden super early. So in January, he started plants indoors, to just kind of baby them and get them started before he moved moved them out to the greenhouse. And then even after he moved them to the greenhouse, it was still pretty early, and he was heating the greenhouse on certain really cold nights. And they just thought he was kind of crazy, thought he was going off the rails. It did seem a little bit out of character. Like, we're self-sufficient. You know, we have a greenhouse, grow a lot of our own food. He makes his own beer. We roast our own coffee. During the last couple of months, he has also bought 4 months worth of green coffee beans to last us for 4 months if we each have 3 shots a day. And, you know, my family just thought he was kind of losing it. And even I was thinking, like, is this an observer freak out? But then, you know, later on I realized, like, no, it's not an observer freak out. It's a fucking pandemic, you know, for real. And he doesn't have observer freakouts at all, like I do. I get so frustrated by things and systems, and he doesn't do that at all. He doesn't really have decider freakouts either. He's just very, very even-tempered, but I would say if I had to pick one or the other, he has a little bit more of decider freakouts. He seems to think that people perceive him in a way that they don't actually perceive him. He sometimes thinks that people don't like him, and that's hardly ever true. People really like him because he's really fucking smart and creative and innovative and also kind. He's just this very balanced person with a lot of really amazing qualities. He's not super charismatic or extroverted, but just like a good person. One of those really high quality people. He seems very INTP. I had him take the Myers-Briggs test a couple years ago, and he got INTP, which is kind of believable, but he doesn't look like an INTP at all. I mean, that doesn't mean he's not one. He's just far more graceful and athletic than what I would typically think of as an INTP. But, you know, there's like, who knows? I'm not good at typing. I have no idea. But he's like 6'2", and he's very athletically graceful and extremely handsome. And, you know, sometimes just anecdotally, I think INTPs are a little bit smaller people. I have no idea what his functions are. I don't know if he's even using intuition. Maybe he just knows how to read the fucking news. You know, if you're looking at the world news over the last few months and looking at the private videos that are coming out of China, this is not coming out of the media, but just like stuff that is showing up on Reddit, private video accounts of scenes that are going down in China. If you're paying attention to that stuff, you know, you might be able to figure this out. So in February, he asked me to talk to my mom and tell her to stock up her pantry. And, you know, she really didn't get it. She didn't understand, but I kept talking about it every day. And then she kind of thought that I was going crazy and I needed to lighten up. Eventually, she started to read the news also. And then at some point, I don't remember when, maybe early March, she actually did go to Costco and stock up on food. So Russ is my filter for the news. We both have high consume, but I just consume different things. He is really into global economics and trends, patterns. I guess he is really into patterns. So he's using intuition in some way, noticing patterns. And he's my filter for the news. That's not what I consume. It's a little bit too heavy, a little bit too dark for me. And also, you can't consume everything. You have to choose. And so he consumes that stuff, and I tell him, you know, give me the highlights and don't tell me the gruesome stuff unless I really need to know it. He did show me 1 or 2 videos from China of just scenes on the streets, in the hospital. A couple of them were pretty awful. I think he did that just because he needed me to understand the potential, that it was a real thing, just to kind of start to mentally prepare me that there was going to be chaos in the world, and then it was going to last for a while. Things are going to be very different for several months. He just kept reminding me, trying to get me prepared for the changes that were coming. So now everyone in my family is on board. They don't think he's crazy anymore. You know, they always really respected his opinion a lot because he's just, like I said, one of those really amazing people that's also just really, really fucking smart, really intelligent. In general, he's usually right. And so I've learned to trust him. You know, living with him for over 11 years, I've learned to trust him. You know, now I think they trust him even more after going through this experience and kind of seeing that, you know, he was right and he was just trying to warn us and trying to prepare us and keep us all safe. So now I'm at home. We live next door to each other. My place is 500 square feet and his place is right next door, 420 square feet. And we live in an alley. So, you know, we're both home home and I go out and run around my neighborhood in the morning with my dog. But other than that, I'm just in my building or his building over there. I call my mom a couple times a day to check on her and make sure she's not bored. She lives with her boyfriend, so she has company. If we need to, we will take things over there for her and leave it on our porch. We're probably going to bring her some of our garden starts that we've been, producing these tomato starts and stuff. So we'll bring her those so she can put those in her garden and just have something to do. She has some sewing machines, so she's making masks right now, which I think I may do a little bit of that also because I have a lot of experience with sewing. On Facebook, a lot of my colleagues are out of work and they were totally blindsided by this. They're neurotic and angry and frustrated and angry at the government and wanting action and wanting economic relief and just really worked up about it, really angry. I feel like I've been mentally prepared for this. Everything's uncertain. Nobody knows what's going to happen in the future, but I've kind of leaned into it. People are saying things like, I'm going to be crucified by my mortgage company. I have credit card debt. And, I'm just like reminding them there will be forgiveness. The economy needs you. The economy needs regular people to be okay and be financially healthy. If hundreds of thousands of people default on their credit card loans all at once, then the credit card companies are screwed. And so they're going to give you forgiveness. Like, give them a while to work it out and change their policies and come up with a plan. But I guarantee you will not be penalized if you can't pay your mortgage or your credit card bills. Yeah, a lot is uncertain. I think that everyone is scrambling to try to find a way to make it work out. And it's not all going to be okay. There's going to be some pretty gruesome stuff. But I'm kind of leaning into the quarantine and just enjoying myself. And I think part of the reason that I'm able to do that is because my partner prepared me. And he even told me back in February, buy art supplies. You were going to spend money on art supplies in 2020 anyway. Get it all now. Get anything you want. And I think he said that because he didn't want to deal with me if I ran out of art supplies, because I can be really annoying if I don't have a project to work on. So that's what I'm doing. I'm working on my Etsy store. I'm making ceramic earrings, playing guitar a lot, and exercising. I'm doing more strength training and kind of brainstorming about the future. I think I'm going to lose my office, so I'm brainstorming about renovating this space that I'm in now and kind of using it for art, but also having my massage office back here. I don't really want to give up the art space, so we'll see how that goes. My partner's also working on projects. He made this electric coffee roaster that we use to roast our coffee every week, and it works great. He made it maybe over 6 years ago, and it works fine. But he's building this bigger gas-powered one, and it's kind of like a work of art. I mean, it has functionality. It will roast beans using, I don't know, some kind of gas, propane or something. I don't know. He does all that stuff, but it's also really beautiful. So we're just doing our best to try to enjoy it right now, although there are a lot of ups and downs. I mean, there's this lurking sense that some really tragic things could happen. There's probably going to be an uptick in petty crime. The possibility of the National Guard being sent in and setting a precedent for martial law. These are all very heavy, serious things. But for this week, we're well. Everyone in our family right now is well, and so we're just taking it one day at a time.